Welcome back to Shoot Me Straight with Eddie Gallagher and usually Dave Fields, but he's on a little vacay with his fam, getting some time away, so it'll just be me, which is unfortunate for some of you. But I'm super excited. We have a awesome guest, my good friend Johnny Wilson. He is like I said, a good friend, but also an old teammate. We went to Buds together, and sort of our career paths were a little bit different. You went to the East Coast, but we've kept in touch, and Johnny is probably one of the most phenomenal human beings that I know. He has done more for the SEAL community than most, and I'm glad to have you on here and sort of, give your background, where you grew up, and what made you become a SEAL, and then what drove you to do what you did when you got out of the teams. I think it's a very interesting and amazing story. So thanks for coming on, brother.
Yeah. No, thanks, man. It's good to be down here in Florida. It's freaking nice down here.
Yeah, right?
But there is overcast, too, so let's call that out.
Yeah, especially with the little event we got coming up here in 3 hours.
I am dreading it, man. It feels like I had to do the 2-mile ocean swim break in the bathroom over there a second ago. It was like, so we got a 4
hour run ahead of us. Yeah.
It's not gonna be pleasant.
Nope. But that's going to be nothing compared to what we got coming in November, which is why we're doing this to sort of talk about that. But we'll get into that here in a little bit.
Fair. Cool. Well, thanks for having me on, brother. It's good to see you. It's good to see the family. And happy to be down here. So my background, I didn't know what a SEAL was. I'm curious your story too, but I didn't know what a SEAL was. My dad was in the Army. He was an MP. He was stationed at Fort Campbell, Kentucky. We lived in Clarksville, Tennessee, and I had my first girlfriend my sophomore summer, and I was in love, dude. Like this, I was marrying this chick. I was so pumped. I was the summer was like planning out to be a great summer. We were having barn parties, everything that you do in Tennessee or you would imagine kids were doing. And my dad, this is in the 90s, my dad was stationed he took a year deployment overseas. So he was over in Saudi at the time. It was actually Kuwait. And I remember
this during Desert Storm?
This was, I guess, when was this, right after? So it was like 90, 94, 95-ish.
Okay.
I think, yeah.
Right around that time.
Yeah, years were a little off there. But so he's over there at the base, and he calls us on the old landline because there's no cell phones back then, obviously. He's like, "Hey, son, super pumped to tell you you're going to come see me. You're going to spend the summer out here." I was like, Dad, I love you. I'm not coming to see you, man. I'm not coming. And he's like, "No, I'm not asking you. You're coming." So no kidding. Got the plane ticket, flew over there. I was pissed off. I was so mad. I didn't want left my girlfriend. She dumped me right afterwards.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, dude. And I landed, and I was what you would think a 14, 15-year-old kid would have done. I was acting like a punk, man. We got kids now that age, and we can throttle it up when we want to. And I throttled it up on the old man, and he endured it for the first couple of days. He let me just pout in the corner when we were driving on and off base. I remember just like looking out the passenger window, ignoring my dad for the first couple of days. And on the 3rd or 4th day, I can't remember, but I remember driving on base, and I look over to the right, and there was a compound there, and the gate was just closing. So it was blacked out, fences, and the gate's closing. I look in there, and I'm like, "What? Dude, Dad, what are those dudes over there with tattoos and beards, and looks like they had guns just like cut." Dude, who is that? And he's like, "Oh, those are the team guys." I'm like, "What's a team guy?" And he proceeds to tell me what Navy SEALs are. And I was like, "I would love to meet those guys. Do you think we can make that happen?" He's like, "Sure." So we go over there, and we get to, I got introduced, and they let me hang out with them for basically the summer.
Really?
Oh, it was so cool, man. And that's my first experience with the teams. I knew right away. And it wasn't because those dudes were like shirtless and jacked. I'm married with 5 kids. That wasn't it at all. It was
Be
just
honest,
like
John.
Yeah, exactly. All right, I got a confession to make. Yeah. But it was just cool, man. It was the camaraderie, the banter, and it's what we now know brotherhood is. And and I just fell in love with the community. And I went back home and I started reading every book. Back then there was like 3 Vietnam books. There was no TV shows. There was no movies. But
what kind of things were they having you, like when you hung out with them for that summer? I mean, what were you doing?
Yeah, they were talking to me about, well, PT, obviously. That was one of the things. Like, they wanted to put me through the ringer, and so I got to PT with the guys. They were educating me, talking about weapon systems, like, as they were cleaning rifles. I mean, it was just like...
Dude, that's legit.
Oh, man, it was so cool. And I realize now, like, what a blessing that was. Because if I wouldn't have met those guys, if I wouldn't have went on that trip to go see my dad, I mean, who knows what I'd be doing these days, right?
Yeah.
But I came back and I started training. I didn't know how to swim, so I became a lifeguard, and started putting in the laps before I had to work every morning. And then I played football back then. Cardio still sucks, and but
we're working on that.
Yeah, we're working on it, man. But I used to run a football practice, so I was like 2 miles from the high school. I'd run 2 miles to practice, 2 miles back, and just started putting in the time, and inevitably got into the academy, so Naval Academy. I wasn't good enough to get in straight in, so I went to NAPS first. I went to Newport, Rhode Island, and barely passed with the skin of my teeth, man. I was just not smart enough, or more, I guess better said, is like I was distracted with all the Irish immigrants coming in from Ireland, working, all the young ladies working there. I couldn't focus on anything but the women there, and I had a 2.0001, which is good enough to go on to the Naval Academy. My Naval Academy days were short-lived, as you probably know.
I remember.
So, yeah. So I get to the academy, and same thing. Like, I just could care less about school. I wasn't mature enough, man, and I realize that now. Back then, I just wasn't prepared for that.
Yeah, you weren't mature enough.
No, bottom line. And you see it with my kids. You see it with kids in general. Like, it's boys specifically, I think.
Yeah, I went through the same deal. It's funny. My dad was in the Army. I grew up an Army brat, and moved around.
Realize that.
Yeah, moved around every 2 years. I grew up in Asia most of my childhood, like Korea, China, Japan. So we moved around every 2 years. But he would go back to the Pentagon. So it'd be like 2 years overseas, 2 years back at the Pentagon, and then that's pretty much how we grew up until I ended up in Indiana, and then
Atterbury.
No, Fort Wayne.
Okay.
It's not too far from Atterbury.
Sure.
But yeah, I had no idea what a SEAL was either. I saw the movie Navy SEALs, the documentary, and
the rest is history.
Yeah, I was like, oh, that looks awesome. But I also like grew up watching Platoon. Like, I grew up watching war movies because just probably because my dad was in the Army and he loved watching them too. But yeah, when I decided to join, the rest of my relatives are all Navy officers, aviators, and my dad's the only Army. And so I walked into the Navy recruiter and was like, by myself, nobody, like, no plan.
Yeah.
Just like, I want to be a SEAL. And the guy was like, oh, sure, of course. And
sign right here, son. I got something special for you.
Yeah. It took me about a 4-year path to get to Buds, but it was a blessing. Yeah.
Well, you went Marine first, right?
So I was a corpsman, yeah. So that's the rate I picked, because you remember back then you had to pick a rate. And what the recruiter told me is, oh yeah, corpsman, automatic, you'll go to Buds. Like, they're in need of medics, which was the complete opposite. When I graduated boot camp, I was already like, yeah, I'm going to Buds after Corps school, and they're like, no, we're overmanned. You can't come. You have to go do your time in the fleet. So at Corps school, you can choose whether you want to go to the fleet, Navy fleet, hospital, or with the Marines. And of course, if I can't go be a SEAL, I'll go with the Marines. Yeah. And the rest was history. I went to an infantry unit, 1-8, and did my 4 years there. And looking back, I'm so glad that happened. That was like some of the most growth I had, because that's who raised me. I was 19. The Marines I think they are the best branch in instilling discipline and hard work ethic. And I got to go to sniper school and a bunch of other schools when I was there, which really set me up for success by the time I got to Buds.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't realize the backstory there. I wonder, just question for you is, so you had that experience with the Marines. Do you think if you would have came straight in from high school to Buds?
I think about that all the time. I was definitely way too immature. I think physically I could have done it. I mean, I wasn't like a stud, but I mean, I just, most of us were pretty stubborn, and we'll grit through anything. And I had that at the time, but no, I would have been booted. I mean, I got in trouble a handful of times with the Marines, so I don't think my chances would have been as great as if I hadn't have gone.
Yeah. Well, if my recollection is correct, you got into some trouble while you were in buds.
Which time?
Yeah, exactly. Oh man.
I think we all have those stories. Oh, yeah.
Those are those in the vault. Some of those stories.
Some of them. Yeah.
That's too funny, man.
So you so in like obviously went to Annapolis.
Yep.
Didn't work out. And then I remember us being in buds and you saying, you were prior Annapolis or whatever, just for a short stint.
Yeah.
I remember the instructors making a big deal out of it too.
Oh yeah.
But when you left there, what was the process of, okay, I'm not going to be an officer? Did you have to go enlist?
Yeah, so I was, I forgot what it's called, but it's after 2 years, you have to sign your commitment papers. And if you get in trouble, don't graduate after the 2-year mark, so you start your junior year, then you owe time. Then you would have to enlist. So I got in trouble all the time. But the one that did me in was the fake ID card, which was an honor offense.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because I got a daughter now that's working. She just graduated college, and she's had a fake ID card. So that was like, I remember in high school and college, like, girl, like, I'm going to be the cool parent here. But, man, that effed my life up.
Yeah.
Actually, it didn't. It was a blessing in disguise because, like you, I wasn't mature enough, man. Like, if I would have stayed at Annapolis, I wouldn't have gotten a billet because I was out partying. I wasn't focused on the prize. I wasn't disciplined enough. So when it would have come down to it, I would have probably, nothing against it, I wouldn't have got the sealed billet. I would have gone SWO or something else. I would have been on a ship. And
you would have been an officer anyway, so.
Yeah, exactly. Turds. I think there's actually 1 or 2 good officers out there.
Probably prior enlisted.
Sorry. Yeah. I thought that's rhetorical. No,
I always, I'll bash on officers, but there are some great ones.
Yeah.
They're just overshadowed by some really bad ones.
Yeah, and you've got your fair share of experience with that, man, unfortunately. We actually got a good dude that's running with us. That's a no. Because obviously we couldn't figure out.
Dave?
Luke. And yeah, we'll leave his, he doesn't want too much on him, but he's doing it behind the radar. So I'll leave that one alone. But good dude, man. And obviously he stepped in because he felt a bunch of enlisted guys couldn't figure this out. So he needed some leadership there. So happy to have you on board.
And that is, and that's the beauty of having a good officer. When you have one, your life is, it's awesome. Like if you have a good leader, the platoons that I did when I had a good OIC, they were awesome platoons, right? But then it's vice versa. If you have a bad one, then the next 2 years of your life are going to be, a living hell because you're like, dude, I have to follow this moron, So that's why it's important that we pick good leaders and that we hold the standard, that these academies like Annapolis, West Point, all these others, that they need to hold that standard there and make sure that they're developing good leaders and not just careerists. And I think not to go, I'm going on a tangent, but
it's a good tangent.
What I saw in my career is I had phenomenal leaders in the Marine Corps, phenomenal officers. And then when I went to the teams, I had, like I said, phenomenal officers and some not so good ones. And what I saw with the not so good ones is they were more focused on career. How can I get that next bar? How can I start moving up that ladder? And once you start focusing on that and not the men that you're leading, then you're not only you're ruining however many enlisted guys, 2 years of their life, but you also make decisions that aren't for the betterment of the men that you're leading. It's more for the betterment of you. And I saw more and more of that. The more long in the tooth I got the teams. Yeah,
for sure. I know a lot of guys that got out because of poor leadership. Some really, one guy particularly comes to mind. He was a stud and he was on track. He wanted to go to Dam Neck, and in my opinion, he would have crushed it there and done great things. And he was one of my new guys. Second deployment, I went off and his second deployment, I went off and went to another command, and next thing I know, he's getting out. And I'm like, no, I think you got it mixed up, man. That dude's a lifer. Like, and I tracked him down. I was like, dude, what happened, man? And he's like, he's a firefighter now. And he's like, leadership. Like, they just picked me apart, and he was a stud. He was the guy that everybody turned to. He was the one that was the first one there, the last one to leave. He lived and breathed the community, and a testament to like a true, good, young, enlisted leader that was going to do great things, and we lost him. And he's one of many. See,
that sucks, you know. And that, I'm sure that's happened multiple times, right? But I remember like my thought process when, if I had a bad, you know, it didn't matter if it was a bad enlisted leader or a bad officer, I would just take like, all right, this is not how I'm going to be when I'm put in that position. You just took notes the whole time. And I did the same thing with the good ones. Like, that's who I want to be like. And I sort of, you know, filed away in your notebook so when you get put in charge, you hopefully don't make the same mistakes.
100%.
Yeah.
Yep. So the academy stuff, fake ID kicked out. I wanted to get back in. So I worked my tail off, went to college, got straight A's there, and then reapplied. You have a 1-year probation period. And there was another team guy, I forgot his name, that did the exact same thing I did like 3 years earlier. So, and they let him back in. He graduated. He was in the teams. So I reached out to him. He kind of coached me on what to do, and different leadership at the time, the superintendent, commandant, they just weren't having it. So they're like, hey, thanks, but no thanks. You were, you know, essentially a turd while you were here. There's some truth to that. I was on restriction all the time. And restriction, awesome. Are you familiar with this?
Oh, I've been on restriction.
Okay, dude. So at the academy,
couple of times.
If this is like the courtyard, because academies are structured, there's like maybe four stories, and in the middle is the courtyard, and you have to get out there with your wool coat on in the middle of winter, and you have your you got your rifle with you, and you just go around and you do boxes or squares is what they call them. And I had hundreds of days of that in a row because I was always getting in trouble. So you'd be out there in the middle of winter, it's snowing, and be
just
like,
sucking.
Same names too, same names always. Like, oh, there's Johnny. Hey, what's up, Dave? Yeah. Hey, what's up, Mike? It's like, what'd you do? What'd you guys do this weekend?
Form your own little restriction crew.
So they were just like, hey, thanks, but no thanks. I didn't know time, but I knew I wanted to be a team guy, as mentioned, and I wasn't going to stop because they said no. I was going to try to find another way. And the Navy wasn't too keen on me trying to get back in. They're like, hey, you got kicked out of the Naval Academy. You can't be a solid dude. So I had to fight tooth and nail to enlist. Had to get congressmen and to go above and beyond and vouch for me. And then that's how I ended up coming in. And the cool thing is you went through boot camp and show up to Buds. And I'm walking down the street, and I was like, I know that ass. And I'm like walking, I was like, I know that ass. That's Joe Wolfel. So Joe, I just knew like the outline, and I see somebody standing next to him. I was like, I know that body. That's Ryan Peters. And so all the guys that I was at the Naval Academy with that got selected showed up the same time, like after I got kicked out.
Which is crazy. What a coincidence.
Yeah, what a coincidence, man. And as you know, Joe has just a
stud. He was the honor man, wasn't he?
He was.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a good dude.
Yep.
Always, yeah. And he was, I think he graduated with a 4.0. I don't know if you knew this at the Naval Academy.
Really?
Yeah. And the only reason, and I might be a little off here, but the only reason he didn't get like the valedictorian or salutatorian or whatever it was at the academy was because I think he was a history or a poly major, and like the person that also graduated with a 4.0 but was like a aerospace engineer, so it was a harder. So they ended up getting it. But he's a brilliant guy. He's doing great things now.
I remember he was so solid when we went to Buds.
Yeah,
always looked out for the boys.
100%.
Just a good dude.
Yep.
Yeah. So you started off 252.
Yeah, 252 original. So OGs. A lot of luck involved with that, as you know. Like,
oh yeah,
dude, good dudes get hurt all the time, and we ended up. I don't know how many people classed up, 200 plus, I think is kind of what it goes. And then there's 17 of the OGs and then a couple from overseas. Like, I don't count those guys.
Oh, the Singaporeans and then Bahugana.
Bahugana, yeah.
That guy got me one of the worst beatings I've ever taken in my life. Do you remember it was in third phase, we were doing the 4 mile time run, and Bahugana was like the fastest dude ever. I mean, the guy weighed I don't know what, 120 pounds, but he could, I remember he couldn't do the O course very well. Wasn't a great swimmer, but that running was ridiculous. And I always came in second.
Yep.
And this is like a picture perfect depiction of what Buds is right here. The instructors pull me aside and they're like, "You are going to beat that Indian today. Like, you better beat him." And I was like, okay, So we started, and I don't think I've ever ran so hard in my life. I sprinted that whole 4 miles, and I was ahead of him. And when you cross the rocks on the way back, that final quarter-mile stretch or however. I mean, I didn't have anything else left to give. I was like putting out as hard as I could. My heart felt like it was going to come out of my chest, and I see in the peripheral this freaking Indian gazelle just like prancing by me, like not even looking like he's winded. And he just like looks over at me, and he finished probably like 20 feet ahead of me.
Nostril breathing.
Yeah. I finished, and I think we finished in like 23 something.
Wow.
It was like hauling. And then I got the worst beating ever for not beating him. I got pulled aside, and I got beat the whole time when you guys were coming in, and kept afterwards and told what a piece of shit I was for. And that is, ladies and gentlemen, Buds. What Buds is.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Dude, so you remember the last Monster Mash on the island?
Yes.
So like the one where you finish and then you go to the Hell Box and we have a big celebration. And so that was my day. Like the gods blessed me that morning. I woke up. I knew right away. I was like, oh my God, I feel it. I felt like a Greek god right there. I'm gonna win this. I knew it. I was like, I got this one today. I can just, something's different, something in the air. So, and honestly, like everything was going my way. If you remember that, we had some gnarly waves that day.
Yeah, we lost some students for we lost them out of the Navy completely. That day.
Out of the Navy,
they
completely.
Got destroyed.
A couple guys broken clavicles, ended up getting rolled. Like, that crushed people. But for me, like I'm telling you right now, like I don't know how to time waves. I don't think any of us know how to time waves. We pretend we do, but I was just swimming as hard as I could, and the ruck was in tow, and I just said, you know what, this feels right. I'm just gonna go in. Meanwhile, I'm seeing bodies like literally ambulances coming out.
It looked like a scene from Saving Private Ryan, dude. There was white shirts on stretchers picking up dudes and bodies off the beach. And I remember coming in as well, looking at that scene and trying to time the waves like, oh, shit. Like, dude, I better get this correct because it looks like guys aren't making it.
Dude, I timed it I didn't time anything. Again, like it was just my day. The wave picked me up, like literally turned me and like gently put me like 50 yards up on the beach, like standing. I felt like I came in like chest out, and I was just like, holy shit. And then meanwhile, again, like there's like medevac happening, the helos coming in. No helos, but and I just took off. And I was like the first one out the gate, and I was just crushing it. Like I mean, like you just said, like the sprint, but I kept going. And then we get to, I think we had another water part, and we were coming out, and we had the rope climbs and then the pull-ups, and that was it. And I'm the first one there, and I get to the rope climb, and he's like, hey, well, I can't remember who the instructor was. He's like, hey, don't you want to change out your booties? And I looked at him, I was like, please, man, I'm having my day. And I start climbing that rope, and I get within like 2 feet. I start shaking. I'm like, oh, shit. And I go to make a reach, and I just slide down because I had the booties on. I couldn't catch traction, and I just went all the way down the rope and like burned the shit out. Done. And then like blood in the water, I see Sneaky Pete's. He sees that, and he just picks up his pace, and he comes up. He gets to the rope as I'm kind of like trying to like rewarm, get my boots on, and he goes up. We go up the same time. He's fresh. I've already, like, my hands are done. I got third-degree burns on my hand. He taps out. I tap out. We go to the pull-up bar. He ends up beating me.
Oh.
Oh, man. That was – and I just like, you idiot. Like, I can't believe that. But that was my day, man. I thought I was going to win it. Never in the back of the pack, historically in the middle front, but that
you were always in the middle front. I remember,
I thought that one was going to be the day for me, but oh well, that's the way it goes.
That's Buds.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
get a little cocky, and then boom, you get dealt it.
Yep. Always give 110%, and sometimes it's going to pay to be a winner, and sometimes it doesn't. And you just got to take what you can, take what you get.
Yep.
And that's it, with a smile on your face.
That's right.
Like, all right.
Thanks. Can I have another?
Yeah.
Yep.
So after, I remember, graduating, we went to SQT together.
Yeah.
Which was awesome. And then Alaska, and did all that.
Did you get in trouble in Alaska? Were you part of that crew?
No, I No, I didn't go out that night.
That was the one night. It was like, I'm going to take a break.
I was like, no, I think I'm going to stay in. Then I think, tridents were pulled. And I was like, well, that's glad. It's like another one of those blessings, right? You're like, dude, I made the right decision. No, I didn't go out that night. I didn't enjoy Alaska, though, when we were there. I don't know what it was. I think I just had, like, fatigue because we had just got our tridents. Yeah. And then it was like, all right, we're going to Alaska, like, the next day. And I mean, I had an all right time, but I remember I was just like, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. And it was daylight the whole time, which jacked me up.
I hate it. I hate that.
Yeah, but it's a beautiful, beautiful state. I've been back there since. I mean,
nice.
But yeah, we did Alaska, and then after that, we all got spread to the winds.
Where'd you went to?
I went to 18 Delta, so I went to Sockham.
Okay, that's right.
That's when I lived with Kendall.
Ron?
Ron, yep. And then, I won't say his name, Big Glow.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, that was about 8 months. Okay. I got rolled, of course. Second time every time for me.
Yeah.
I got for...
Two-time Eddie's, I think that was your nickname.
That's it. It is, dude. I gotta jack it up the first time, and then I'm good the second.
Yeah.
It was for tests. Like the first, I think 2 months you're there, you have to take 3 or 4 tests a week in like pharmacology, anatomy. Like you're drinking from a fire hose of like what med students get in years, you're getting in months. And so you have to score an 80 or above to pass. And I think my pharmacology, I got 79. And so they're like, you have to go redo this. And so you have to wait to class back up, which sucked. Yeah. So whatever. It worked out. The second time through, I crushed it. So second time every time.
yeah. That's too funny. I bet, that was the end of the world for you probably back then. It was like, I can't believe it, leaving all the guys. And then you look back, it's like, that was just a blip.
Yeah.
It's just,
It was, it's a weird feeling leaving your buds class, right? Because you're like a family for 2 years, pretty much. You're around each other every day, doing everything. And then, everybody just gets kicked to different teams. And then it's weird. Like some dudes you never see again. Yeah. Some dudes you keep in contact with, or you might like run into them overseas, like high five,
It was, I haven't seen guys we had the reunion a couple of us went to, and I saw a couple guys I hadn't seen in 20 years, right? Like, there's other guys I still haven't seen from buds. It's been that long. And then you mentioned one of the dudes, old Puma. You haven't seen him, and we're doing that 200-miler together. So that's I doubt he's going to do it, but.
Let's see.
I know.
Oh, Zaid.
I know. Talks a big game. But we'll see.
We'll shame him into it.
100%.
That's what we're good at.
Yeah.
Yeah. I kept from our buds class, just 1 or 2 dudes I think went to Team 1 with me, and that was it.
Yeah. So I ended up going to 4 with Puma and some others. So Puma was my swim buddy. Zaid was my swim buddy, and then went to Team 4 together. Ended up doing sniper school together. And
how was your time on the East Coast? Because I think, especially for the listeners, obviously the odd number teams are West, even number teams are East, and there are 2 different cultures, which I think I never did any time on the East Coast, but from what I've heard. And I train with East Coast guys, and it's always seemed like it's just like a different dynamic each time.
Yeah, no, there's truth to that. Like we actually trained and went to war, and I felt like when I went out to the West Coast for traded, I learned how to surf and paddleboard. And
California, Hollywood
cruiser, so yeah. No, there is 2 different cultures, man. I'll speak to what I knew, and it was just like, it was like we were super disciplined there.
Yeah,
like, there was. I don't know if we had fun, man, if I'm being honest. Like, we had fun on the trips, but it was just like, it was always hardcore. Like,
all business.
All business, man.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what we needed. I don't know. I'm not judging. I enjoyed my time in the teams. I enjoyed my time on the East Coast. I appreciate the leadership that we had. But then I talked to some buddies on the West Coast. I'm like, you're doing what? You guys are like, what? That's... Man, I gotta go do a fucking 10-mile Frogman Friday, and you guys are doing like going to Danny's and McPee's.
That must have been team 5 or 7.
Yeah.
That wasn't happening at team 1.
Yeah.
No. Team 1 was pretty much the same,
Similar.
all business. They call it, they used to call it Stalingrad 1.
No kidding. I didn't know that.
Yeah. We were, uniform.
Yeah.
Everything was to a T,
Yep.
which I'm glad. Looking back now, I'm like, dude, I'm glad that's how I came up when I first got to the teams, because I ended up going to 7. It's funny when you switch around different teams that you talk about different cultures. Like even within the different teams, there's different cultures. And I went to 7, and it was like very laid back, just like, oh, what's up, bro? And there wasn't any of that from team 1. So that took a while for me to get used to.
Sure.
But then I also was like, this is not bad.
Yeah. I don't have to iron my PT T-shirt. Oh, this is cool.
Exactly.
Now we actually had we had to wear white socks.
Oh yeah, the dive socks.
Yeah. Okay,
oh yeah,
cool.
with the green shorts.
Yep.
Oh yeah, dude.
They weren't playing. We tried to bring out. That's when black socks were making trying to make a come out, if you will. And a couple of guys had black socks. And woo.
Did you ever do the? So what I did was take the dive sock and I cut the top of it.
Yeah. So
I just had like the little band, and then I would just put that over my boot so it looked like I had them on.
I never heard of
that.
Dude. That's too funny. No, we didn't do that. I wish I would have known that. I would have done the same thing, man.
Oh, everybody at Team 1 did it, because dude, putting those thick ass dive socks on and then your boots every day, you're like, dude, why are we walking around in these wool socks in this? It's California.
Yeah.
So we found a way around it, as any good team guys do. They're like, this works.
Oh yeah, if you're not cheating, right? The time was good. I enjoyed Team 4.
Where was your first deployment?
We went to Baghdad back to back. So we had an accelerated workup for the first one, and we showed up and we worked with their special operations unit out there. Mm-hmm. It was fun. We were working. Give me one sec.
Technical difficulties.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Cool. So we were working. We were going out doing DAs, and it's what you signed up for.
Yeah. Was it you were like, yes, I made it. This is what I.
We were doing helos. So that deployment, helo infills. It was just, we were working in Solder City. I remember being on one of my first missions in Solder City and just staring. I was the lead driver, and I'm looking over to the left. I'm like, man, that looks like fireworks. It looks like the 4th of July. And I had my SCA at the time had just come from Dam Neck. He's like, hey, dumbass, we're getting shot at. Drive. I'm like, oh, shit. I'm just awestruck. I was like, oh, man, what is that? That's cool. They look like fireflies out there. What is that? I was like, hey, idiot. But it was everything that we thought, man, and it was good. We had a good team, good crew. We were, working out 2 days, doing ops, sometimes 2-a-day ops too, and it was good. And then when we got back, got some new leadership, got some new folks in the platoon, got some new guys. The new guys are studs. They've gone on and done great things themselves. I stay in touch with a lot of them, giving back to the community, starting businesses, smart dudes. But we went right back to Baghdad, and then ended up being one of the task force out there, Task Force 17, going after a specific target set. And it's kind of same deployment, just different target set. And same thing, man. I was a recce team lead at the time, and that was fun. I was climbing buildings. It felt like Spider-Man, using 10 poles and clearing buildings from the top down. It was different. It was new. It's like they adapted our tactics, so we thought outside the box, and it was another fun deployment, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
what year was that?
That was probably 06, 07 maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, something like that. Maybe a little bit later. Yeah, probably. It was probably a little bit later, 08 actually, now that I think about it, because we wrapped up. Yeah, it was probably 08.
Okay. Yeah. I don't, believe me, same thing. That
the numbers.
Time back then, I'm like, I don't remember what year is what. I base all my deployments off of music. I'm like, oh yeah, that's when that new Linkin Park album came out. That was on this deployment. And that's when, so that's how I remember things.
That's so true, man. Yeah, it does. I hear a song and it throws me right back to a time I was like, oh man, dude, it just puts you right back in the gym and in Baghdad or over in Afghanistan, or it's crazy how music would do that to you.
Yeah. Did you? So you did those 2 to Iraq.
Yep.
And then did you make it over to Afghanistan at all?
Yeah, I went to Kabul. I went to one of the Omegas there, so I did a deployment.
The Augment.
Yep.
Okay.
That was a great time. Yeah, I mean, that was different. I mean, that was the first time I got to experience that. That was fun as hell.
Yeah, I remember a guy like that was the big thing when they were taking it was obviously Dev Group whatever was taking augmentees from the vanilla teams or the white side teams. Guys were coming back like, oh my gosh, like I want to get over there because they have everything and it's a golden Connex box.
Yeah,
but I tried. I think it was after my second platoon, I wanted to, but they were like, no, you're going to be an instructor at first phase for a little bit. And Andrea and the kids were like, yep, no, you're doing this. So it ended up being a good thing anyways. But
yeah. So that was it for me, man. I had 5 kids during that time period. We had one at the time, Madison is our oldest, and she's crushing it right now. I'm super proud of that girl. She's working in New York City. But I mean, I did that, and Alice and I talked, and was like, hey, let's figure it. Let's try something new. I'm grateful for the time of the teams. I was so focused on the mission that I wasn't a dad. I wasn't a father, man. You know that. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to do that. And for me, I got out and didn't know how to get out. Didn't know how to transition.
How many years you having at this point?
Probably like 10, something like that.
So you're right. Yeah, you're right at that point.
Yeah. So, and I started, this was probably 2012, something like that. Mm-hmm. Started talking to some guys and what are you doing? Like, do you like it? And everybody was miserable on the outside. Like, I mean, you go from like the mission, the teams, the brotherhood to like trying to find your way in corporate. And back then there was no programs to help us transition. It was like, hey, thanks for the time. Good luck out there.
Yeah.
And there was one guy, Joe Feminilla. He was at Wall Street, and he's like, "Hey, man, there's some synergies between what you used to do in the teams and what we used to do in the teams." He was a team guy, and trading. Would you want to do that? I was like, "Yeah." I mean, Goldman Sachs, like we always shoot for the stars. Like hell yeah. And so I interviewed, had my degrees. I interviewed and got the opportunity, and it was almost instantaneous, man. I started getting depressed. Like I got out to be with the family, and I was gone more on Wall Street than I was in the teams. I was up every morning at 3:45 to hop on the train to get to Goldman on time, and it wasn't my purpose. Like nothing against those guys, great dudes over there in Dallas. Like I mean, it's great. It just wasn't for me. I wasn't passionate about it, and the tipping point for me was when we're sitting at the desk, and I started getting text, and I was like, oh shit. And Nick Check had died, and then it hit the media, like we're looking up at the trading floor, and I look up and I see now they're talking about like, hey, Navy SEAL. And I was just like, I went home that night and probably should have talked to Allison first, but I called my boss. I was like, hey, I'm done. And the plan was to come back in. And I didn't talk to anybody about coming back in. I just was like, hey, I guess I'm not meant to be out here. Like, I guess I don't fit out here. It's just some of us don't. That's not the case. I didn't know that back then.
Yeah, it's how you felt at the time.
Oh, yeah. So I quit, told my wife I quit, and she was like, what the fuck? Are you fucking kidding me?
Thanks for conferring with me.
Yeah, thanks. So what do you want to do? And I was like, oh, I actually just got off the phone with the SCA over at Team 10, one troop, and he said I can go back there. And she was like, I mean, you can imagine if you told your wife that. Like,
oh, well, yeah, especially now.
Yeah.
You're like, have fun by yourself.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it damn near broke us, right? Like she's a strong woman, and we've had her ups and downs, and she stood by my side, and we ended up figuring it out.
Yeah, any woman that can last a career in the teams or 10 years, it doesn't matter what, with especially you had 5 kids.
Yeah.
Dude, that is a testament to her, and like because we're living the dream.
Oh, 100%.
We're like, we're children with guns still that are like doing what we did when we were little. Now we're adults and doing it, and the women have to put up with that. And then also they're taking 80% of the share of the household.
Oh yeah,
or maybe more than that. You know,
yeah,
they're literally
definitely
locking
more
it
than
down
that.
back home and pretty much catering to our job. And any woman that sticks around and puts up with that is just battle hardened. I mean, they're shield maidens is what I call them. Like they make sure that we can go do our job, and they keep everything smooth and copacetic at home, so we don't have to focus on that, which I think that gets lost a lot of times, just how hard these women are and just how amazing they are, the ones that stick around.
Yeah, and I'll come back to that because there's some lessons learned from the nonprofit we started. We're only 50% of that equation. Them women have just as much trauma as we do because they're living it vicariously through us. They're at home by themselves waiting for that knock, you know, like waiting for the doorbell to ring. And we realized quickly, like, you know, we're out there getting fixed, you know, post and, you know, I don't want to get too far ahead here, but post our time in the service, a lot of us have issues, and we're out there receiving all these services and flying around the country, getting treatments, and they're, again, sitting there holding the baggage, and they're like, hey, what the fuck? Like, what about me? But maybe we'll hit that at a later period.
Yeah, for sure.
So at the Goldman thing, I ended up coming back in and to one troop and saw a couple buddies there, and we deployed like 3 months later. And again, I didn't know if that was even possible. Like, I didn't think you could do that, but somehow there was a couple instrumental guys in leadership roles that were able to pull me back in, and we deployed and did a South America stint, which was interesting. It was completely different. The war, that was probably 2012, 13. So
you had come back in at this point.
Yep.
I didn't know this.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I came back in. I know. So came back in and did 2 more deployments, so South America, and then we did Colombia, Chile. So I still got some buddies down in Chile. So they got like the Comfwes, which is their frogmen, and those guys every year on Christmas, Alejandro, who was the officer in charge at the time, I get a package that's just ragtag piece of shit box, and I know what it is. Like, I know who it's from, and I know what's in it. And I open that thing up, and it's a bottle of Pisco Sour, which is like their drink down in that part of the world. And when we first showed up, I was in charge of the crew down there, and they took us out to the nice restaurant, their SEALs, and you know, we're doing these little Pisco Sours, which is like their local drink mixed with like egg whites, and it's super sweet, and they're just like watching us throw them back. And I mean, we can drink back then, but we could not drink Pisco Sours. So like all of us, they're just laughing their asses off because they know what's about to happen. And we all just got hammered, blackout drunk. All the team guys and all the Comfwest SEALs are like laughing at us. The next day we had the worst hangovers ever. So to this date, every Christmas I get a bottle of Pisco Sour from awesome. Alejandro. Keep pulling this guy out.
Maybe just flip it. There we go. That way it's not
on the left side.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, we did a couple more deployments. I did one more to I went to Africa. So ran a group out there, and that was interesting. That was kind of when the Boko Haram stuff was kicking off, or was already happening, but we started doing the mission sets out there, and that was fun. But I skipped a part. So the Goldman thing, I started talking to other guys, and it's just like, you know, is your experience transition in this hard? And every single one of them was 100% yes. So there was this massive transition gap. And we just, my good buddy who I was living with at the time, because I got tired of the commute from Jersey to the city, his name is Brian Martelli. He was a former soccer player, and he was a Wall Street guy. And he knew team guys, and he let me crash in his little apartment in Astor Place in New York City. So I didn't have to like freaking hop on the train for 2 hours there and then 2 hours back.
Miserable commute.
Horrible, man. But one day I'm just like bitching about this. It's like, man, I don't think this is for me, dude. I don't think I fit out here. It's like, bro, like you guys have like discipline. You guys are smart. You guys think outside the box. You're good under pressure. You guys fit. You just got to find out where. It's like, well, I mean, how do we figure that out? It's like, well, what do you guys have to help you with that? I was like, nothing. He's like, let's create something, man. And I was like, what do you mean? I was like, let's start something. If it's not just you and it's everybody else, let's do that. So we started the SEAL Future Fund back then, which we had to change because everybody thought we were a hedge fund. They're like, hey, man, like, hey, you guys are, I was like, no, we're not a hedge fund. We're a nonprofit. So that's why we did the name change to SEAL Future Foundation. But that was 2012, 13. We started that off.
That's before you got out again?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was actually when I was at Goldman at the time. I was still at Goldman, and we just realized this massive transition gap. And we were one of the first ones, I think. I think Honor Foundation was started in roughly the same time, maybe 2012.
My recollection, but when I heard about SEAL Future Foundation, that was before the Honor Foundation had been stood up.
Yeah.
At least I didn't.
And those guys are doing great things.
Yeah,
too.
I went to the Honor Foundation.
Yeah. I'm curious your take on it at some point. I would just say how we built the SEAL Future Foundation was the same way we deployed overseas. It was like, hey, if the front door is locked, maybe throw a charge on it. If it's barricaded, you go through the back door. If the back door is locked, you go through the windows. If the windows are like, you come from the top. And that's how I, like, honestly, in my opinion, it was, if we go through the front door at these big banks or these companies and we put a resume in, I don't know if we're gonna be able to succeed in that capacity. And our view is like, hey, let's build a model where we actually develop a relationship. We show the strengths that these men and women have. In this case, it was SEALs, the strengths that these men have, and then people will take a chance on them. So our model is always about relationships. Let's go through the back door instead of putting a resume on the counter. So I think the Honor Foundation does a great job of like getting guys prepped with coaching and test preps and resume writing, et cetera. But our model is like, hey, let's just backdoor it.
Yeah. So I went through the Honor Foundation right before I got out. And it was like, 3 months? 3 months long. And I was glad I went. I got a lot out of it. But what I think it's, it's different strokes for different folks, right? I think some guys go there and they're like, yes, like, I want to go be a middle management dude at this company, because guys come in there and will hire you on the spot.
Yeah.
Right. But they also do a good job of taking you. Like, we went to Chicago. We visited like LinkedIn and all these other companies just to see how they work. And there's always a team guy working there that was a liaison that would give us a tour. And what it did for me, it just showed me what I didn't want to do. I was like, not that I was like in the best spot at the time either. That's like the beginning of all that crap that was happening to me. So I was like dealing with that, but also trying to prep to get out. And I was like, dude, in my mind, I was like, I'm contracting, like ground branch. I'm going like that. There was really no other answer to me. And it was, I think I didn't do the due diligence to like even allow myself to accept some of the, like, oh yeah, like maybe this lifestyle would be better. But I definitely went to a bunch of different companies where I was like, there's no way.
Yeah.
Like even the guy, I remember the SEAL at LinkedIn, he came and gave us this big presentation, and they put on a show. We went to LinkedIn. They were like taking us, they had their cafeteria, which had like the best of everything. People were riding around on like those hoverboards and like, what's up, bro? And people were like, dude, this place looks awesome to work at. And we sat down, and the team guy that was working there came in, gave us, and he's like, yeah, man, like selling us on everything. So of course, I think 10 people were like, I'm in, like, how can I, and then I raised my hand and I was like, I got one question, dude. I was like, do you wake up wanting to come here every day? I was like, do you believe in what you're doing? And he didn't answer. He just like looked at me, and I was like, I just want to know. Man. And I'm like, then I'm like, I don't want to do something where I want to have the same passion that I had in the teams. Or try to match it in some way, which is very hard to do. But that's why, I was like, I'm going to ground branch. I want to, and I'm glad I didn't end up going that route either. Believe me. That was the mindset I was in at the time.
I mean, a lot of us go to what we know, right? Yeah. So that's comfortable. Like, hey, that's what I know. That's what I'm good at. And then everything else is not comfortable. Like, speaking from experience, it pushes you, which I appreciate. Again, like my time at Goldman, albeit brief, but some of the other firms that I worked at, like, I'm so grateful for that, because it made me grow. It made me learn. It made me a better person. But again, like like you, I was like, this ain't for me. I'm coming back in literally like less than a year later, whatever it was, right? Like I'm scared of this civilian world. And was right back at it.
Institutionalized.
Yep, that's right. I say that all the time. A lot of us don't realize it's like a prison, man.
It is. I mean, it's a prison that we voluntarily sign up for, and we love it. And we're like, this is awesome. But yeah, definitely you have to break free of a lot of the stuff that has been instilled in you for so long.
Oh, yeah.
And you're like, okay. And I mean, even things where, hey, you can relax, or like you can try and do, it's hard to do. You're like, I need to be going full speed ahead all the time. Or like we were just joking about last night, like everything can be going smooth and copacetic. It's like, I'm just going to throw this chaos bomb because that's what I want. I want some chaos.
That's my happy place.
Yeah.
Or that's where I feel comfortable, however you want to describe it. But it's so true, man. And it's all of us.
Yeah.
So everything's going good. You're like looking around. It's like, oh, everybody's happy. Money's good. Like, oh God, I gotta fuck this up.
Yeah.
I gotta do something right now. This isn't okay. Something's wrong here.
Again, it helps having a strong wife, even when you get out and you're still like that for sure.
And they know, man. They like put up the barriers. It's like,
oh yeah.
Shit. We were talking about it last night, and I do believe this. And it was today with your wife, like the moon cycle, man. So like my wife, like she knows, like, oh shit, it's a full moon, like the werewolf's coming out, like, and like arms go up, and she's like, oh, let's just give him the space, guys. Like it's that time. Look at the full moon. Like we got to endure for the next, and you just go crazy. There's some truth to that, man. I don't.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, the family gets trained.
Oh yeah.
Like, and the next couple of days are going to be interesting.
Yeah. Then you come out of it, it's like, hey guys, you want to go to Chick-fil-A?
I got he's back.
Yeah, all right, yeah, cool, Dad. Are you back? Or
I think what I found though, like as I've gotten out, being I think almost 5 years out now, those spaces where I am like, okay, I need to be chaotic and I need to do something, have like shortened. Where when I first got out, I would be like that for weeks, sometime a month, which was miserable for the kids and for Andrea, I'm sure. And I think, and getting the right treatments and everything else and becoming more self-aware. And, like we joked about too, it's like, oh, it's not me. It's everybody else. Yeah. Like I'm normal. And it's like, I hate to break it to you, but you are not. Yeah. And that's what Andrea used to say, she's like, you're not normal. And neither are any of your friends.
Yeah. Well, it's great that we're in a spot now, and it's taken a lot of work, that we can look back and realize, like, shit, it wasn't everybody else.
Yeah.
It was always me.
Yep.
Always. Like, it's always you. Like, you choose how you respond to shit, right? Like, if you want to be a dick or if you want to flare up, that's you. But if somebody does something and you just walk away from it, that's you. It's always you. You have the decision power there.
Exactly.
I didn't realize that. And we're not perfect. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like, oh, I figured it out, because I ebb and flow.
Oh, I still deal with it. I mean, we were joking. I dealt with it the past 2 days. They had that full moon out, and I'm like, restless, and then just going through my roller coaster of emotions. And Andrew's like, and here we go. Which I'm so glad that you came down. Like, it just makes it. I'm like, sweet. I got another one with me.
Yeah. I mean, that was interesting. There's a friend of ours, Moose, and Moose reached out because we're on this journey together, just healing. A lot of us are, and he knows that I cycled during that time. So I got the text like 48 hours before. He's like, hey, brother. I'm like, hey, what's up, man? What are you up to? He's like, blue moon, 48 hours out. I'm like, thank you. Oh, yeah, God. So now it's just like, I'm like kind of checking the senses. Everything good? I don't feel anything. So this was kind of like a low. Now I know blue moons for me aren't a thing, but full moons are. So it sounds like blue moons are for you, though.
Well, full moons and blue moons. Or sometimes I don't even need a moon. It'll just happen.
Sure. Oh, man.
So you started the Steel Future Foundation at Goldman Sachs, or like the idea, right? Then you went back in. Did your 2 platoon or 2 deployments. Yep. Had the Steel Future Foundation thing going at the time. Yeah.
So Brian Martelli, the guy that started it with me, that I lived on his couch with, he ran it for the first couple of years, and then I got back from that deployment, and I came back and he turned it over. I took it over and we started running it. So I did that for up until about 2 years ago. I ran the foundation. And initially it was for job placement. So we wanted to build community. We wanted guys to find like-minded industries and cultures. We were working on that problem set. 2017 happens, and we're supposed to talk to a team guy, and he takes his life the weekend before, right? So that was the first suicide on our watch. And now it is an epidemic. It's pandemic.
It's rampant.
I've lost more buddies now to suicide than I have to war, and I'm pretty sure it's similar to you now. So that was the first one. Took a step back. Because like, okay, we're getting these guys jobs, but they're not healthy. Like, they got a lot of traumas that they got to unpack. And maybe it wasn't from war. Maybe it's childhood. Who gives a shit? It doesn't really matter. But we got to get these guys whole before they go off and do what they do best. They're going to go back serve communities. They're going to go conquer wherever they're at. But we can't have them coming off the battlefield all like tattered up and then trying to acclimate back into society. It's just not going to work. And we saw it. Guys were imploding. So we took a step back and looked at what was out there and thought there was a massive disconnect. It was like they're giving us pills to deal with these problems, TBI, like, and they're giving us pills like talk therapy. Like these guys aren't and gals aren't trained at this point in 2017 to deal with the stuff that we're going through. They don't even know how to talk to us.
Yeah. Especially with the amount of people that were getting out at that time.
They were overwhelmed, and they still are overwhelmed. It's just like it's a massive medical system, but it's hard to deal with the amount of the population they got. And again, I think there's newer modalities, tools, resources out there that we need to advocate for to get in the hands of these guys that have and gals that are suffering. But so we took a step back and looked at everything. And I just went to the team. I was like, I don't care what it is. Like, let's explore it. Nothing's off the wall. That's when we were, 2017, 18, when we were introduced to things like psychedelics. And the first time I heard psychedelics, I was like, nope, that ain't going to fly. I mean, we're a zero drug. I'm still like, we don't do drugs here. But then a little seed was planted on the psychedelic idea, and I'll come back to that. But then we looked at TMS. We started looking at what are some of the novel research out there. Let's go find out who these people are, talk to them, and see if there's an opportunity. And that's when we started creating our medical pillar, our wellness pillar at the Seal Future Foundation. And for the psychedelic thing, I just started reading the research, man. And I don't know if you've looked at it, but if you just look at the research compared to like SSRIs, like it's not. I mean, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, I'm a huge proponent of psychedelics.
Yeah.
Like I obviously went and did the Ibogaine, the 5-MeO-DMT, and every once in a while I will microdose or whatever and like I said, it gets me like you get in those roller coasters, right? And and I suffer from I won't want to say I suffer. I have depression.
Yeah.
Like, and it'll come on every once in a while, and like the longer I've been out now, the more I'm like, oh, I know what's happening, right? And I will combat it, best way I know how without anything. But there's times where I'm like, all right, this is like full force, and that's when I'll microdose, and it gets me. I'm out of it within a day. I'm like, oh, that cloud is gone.
Yeah. Well, I think that's awesome to hear, and I've microdosed as well before. I think another big part of the problem is our community. And what I mean by that is like, go back to our training days, the old adage, suffer in silence. Mm-hmm. Like, would you ever I had a broken foot and I broke it. I was fucking off in Afghanistan. I had the doc like kind of roll up my heel, give me some meds, give me a shot. And I went out on a mission on that night because I was too embarrassed to tell my leadership. More importantly, I didn't want to let down my buddies.
Yep.
So like, that's the mindset. You're never going to let your teammates down. And it's probably the right mindset for what we used to do.
For the right time, yeah.
100%. You get out and you still have that mindset. We don't talk about our mental health. We don't talk about our depression. Like we're too machismo or alpha to like, no, that's killing dudes.
Yeah.
That's killing dudes. So,
but it's so hard for dudes to be vulnerable when they get out and to actually admit that, it was hard for me. I was like, no, I don't have depression. Like when I got told I had it, I'm like, yeah, you're out of your mind. Like
that's the wrong test.
There is nothing wrong with me, and a matter of fact, it was like, not only do you have depression, we have about another list of things that are wrong with you. And I was like, I couldn't admit it, and my whole family, Andrew is like, no, you do. Like we watch it and I'm like, no,
it's not me. It's you.
Not me. And that was my ego. That was the way you've been trained to be, to like not allow myself to admit that, yes, I have an issue, and it's so much stronger to admit it than to hold it in. And then you can once you admit it and you start getting help, you're like, oh, why didn't I do this years ago, right? Yeah.
Well, I think I ended up doing psychedelics too, the Ibogaine and 5-MeO, and that was like 2018, I think. I mean, I think that was one of the best things I've ever done in my life. From just a health perspective, like I had massive ego. I still have ego. I think a lot of us do.
Everybody does.
Yeah, but I didn't have perspective. I thought everybody else was fucked up. It wasn't me. It's always you, and that allowed me to reset. And I mean, the science shows that it resets like the connections between the neurotransmitters. And it scrubs them and allows them to communicate in the way, it breaks those old habits. And I think we all, like it's used, Ibogaine used predominantly for addictions. It works well with our communities because even if we're not addicted to drugs or alcohol, we're addicted to behaviors, patterns, like.
Yeah.
So I think it disrupts that long enough for you to be like, oh, that's what I'm doing. And I got, I had done a lot of things over the years, went to the VA, and it kind of, that was at a low point in my life. Like I was not doing well. I was at Goldman. Everybody's like, Johnny, you've done it. You're the 1%. And had my first anxiety attack. I didn't know what, like, not me. Like I'm walking through the Target aisle, the light bulb aisle in Target, and like all the flashes, like sensory overload. And I had to walk myself into the corner of Target and just kind of like get my bearings. And I didn't know what happened, but everybody's telling me, he's like, you did it. You're the 1%. You're at Goldman. You're making a lot of money. Like, you live in Connecticut now. Like everything's like, congratulations. It's like, why do I feel this way? Yeah. So I ended up going, finally, I guess, broke down because I was embarrassed or, all the stigma around it. And I finally broke down and, a relationship was falling apart. And I was like, oh, I'll go to the VA. My first trip to the VA, dude.
I can't. I'm sorry, because I'm sure I have a similar experience.
So I just imagine the anxiety and the, just the feelings of like, okay, I'm a failure. Like whatever was going on through my head, it was something along those lines. Like, what the fuck's wrong with me, man? I can't, why am I feeling this? Why am I crying?
Well, that's that shame factor too. That comes into play.
Yeah. Yeah. We should touch on that too, because that's a big part of our community as well. But I hop in the car and I drive the hour to New Haven, Connecticut, and I'm early because you're in the military and you're going to be early. If you're not early, you're late. And I circled a parking lot for 45 minutes trying to find a parking spot. Can't find it. So I park like damn near a mile. Now I'm sprinting because now I'm late. And I get there and I walk in dripping sweat, like I'm sorry, I'm late. And this lady looks at me and gives me attitude, and she's like, when were you supposed to be here? And I'm like, I was like 10 minutes late. I'm sorry. I was just like, you're lucky if we're going to see you. I don't even know if we can. Just give me all this attitude. And then my senses start going off. And I'm like, man, I'm here trying to get mental health help, like trying to get help. And this is my first interaction with the VA. Like, are you kidding me? And then like, now I'm getting angry and like, I'm going back to the old Johnny. And it's just like, she starts lighting into me. And then I was just like, I wanted to like reach across the counter, and I just grabbed my shit out of her hands and I walked right out, back to the car. My first experience with the VA.
Yep.
You're just let down.
Mine wasn't as like crazy. Like that's ridiculous that they even treated you that way. I checked in here when I first moved, and I was told like, hey, at least check into the VA, because I was adamant. I was like, I'm not going, dude. Like I was on tramadol for 2 years. Well, probably 3 years in my last bit of the teams. And I wanted to kick. I was like, I want to get off this. And I wasn't like overabundantly taking it, but I was definitely taking enough to be, I'm addicted. Like I want them at least once a day. And so I went there and checked in. I'm like, hey, here's my medical record. And she starts looking at it and she's like, holy shit. And I'm like, what? And she's like, we have never seen anything like this here. And it's because there's no seal. It's all like, conventional regular Navy, which,
nothing. Yeah, there's nothing wrong.
So I was like, no, that's how all of us are, like our record. She's like, well, all right. So then immediately 5 minutes later, she's prescribing me all like at least 3 different medications. And I was like, no, I don't want anything. And she's like, well, what are you going to do to deal with this? And I was like, I don't know, but I don't want any pills. And I was like, as a matter of fact, I don't want any tramadol either. Like, I want off everything. And dude, the amount that she was pushing it on me. Yeah. And then they were calling me weeks later, hey, do you want us to mail it? We'll just mail it to you. Just make it. And it's almost, I was like, dude, they're pushers. Like you're trying to get me hooked on this stuff. And I was adamant. I was like, dude, I'm not taking, and I still haven't. I won't take any pharmaceuticals, man. I went down that road for 3 years, and that was enough for me. That's never again. But thanks to, to Seal Future Foundation, I mean, that's really what was a huge factor in me getting to where I'm at now. Because when I first got out, I called, I think I talked to you and then Paul, and you guys set me up with, getting all my blood done, and they got me all the supplements, whatever I was low in, like the TRT, everything. And ever since then, I mean, it's not been like, a smooth road, but it's definitely everything that was given to me by Seal Future Foundation has improved my life like dramatically. And that's what I tell. And I also went and did multiple treatments. So like I did HBOT. I did about 65 dives. I did the ganglion block. I mean, you name it. Because Andrea, when I first got out, she's like, you're not doing a damn thing until you fix yourself. Yeah. She's like, you're doing treatments, whatever you got to do. So I've done the whole buffet.
Yep.
And I think, and this is from my experience, I think each treatment has its own benefits, but they're all it's all Band-Aids in some form or fashion, right? I mean, like I think the ganglion block, the first time I did that had like for 4 months, I was like, oh, I'm fixed, but that wears off.
Yeah.
And then the second time you do it, it doesn't last as long. And then, I went to the Ibogaine, and that was also like, that was a great experience. I am very careful with calling it a game changer, which I've heard that term used. I don't think it's a complete game changer. What it gave me, it put me in the right direction and let me see myself for what I was being at the time. And like, also, dealt with some stuff in my past, stuff, childhood and all that. And so it set a foundation for me. But what I've told guys is, and this is just from my experience, I know everybody's different. I'm like, you are still going to have to put in the work afterwards, and you can't like keep looking for these outlets. Like, oh, now I want to do this treatment, and now I need to constantly do that. I'm like, eventually you're going to have to sit down and literally work on yourself by yourself, like meditate, put in the work. I mean, and that's where I've implemented the spiritual. Like I wake up every morning, read my Bible, talk to God every day. That is probably the biggest benefit I've gotten out of it, because I'm not depending on anything. It's, but I do think all those treatments are great. Like I think everyone should try them. And I don't know what the answer is to, like, for guys getting out. I wish the command would sort of mandate in some way before they get out, like, hey, here's your buffet, pick 2.
Yep.
Before you leave, you're going to do 2 of these treatments.
Yeah.
And see where you go from there.
Yep. No, I think that's all true, man. I think they're all tools. And what works for you, man, doesn't work for me, right? Like, and we have to acknowledge that. So like the medical model right now is pushing a certain thing. Maybe it is drugs, right? It is pharmaceuticals, because that's the tool that they've been trained to push, and it's a disconnect with our community. All these other things that we're exploring, that we've explored at Seal Future Foundation, that you're exploring, all these other nonprofits are exploring, are great tools, but they're not the end-all be-all, to your point. Like, it's not going to fix you. It's going to buy you time for you to reset, put in new behavioral patterns, and then go off and continue to crush in the world. I mean, that's the whole reason that we started INVI Mind Health. It was actually at the Seal Future Foundation. We had wearables on every guy, and the wearable we had was used to measure, like, from a workout perspective, can you work out today, and like how much could you work out today? But that wearable,
is that the Whoop?
The Whoop,
yeah, I was wearing that for a while.
Okay, so we had, I don't know, over 1,000 dudes on that at one point. I mean, we had a lot of guys on that.
All that did was create a competition.
Oh, I know. That is funny. It did, man. Guys were working out.
I look at people's strain factor. I'm like, how the hell is this guy getting 95 every day?
So I saw that happen, and all the guys were like pushing themselves. Guys were getting off the couch, which was cool. I was like, I don't care. Yeah. That's like the byproduct of being on this. Cool. Like, guys are getting in shape. How we used it initially was we would see when guys were in the red, and if they were in the red too long, we would just reach out, and that's how we were catching guys that were suffering in silence. So guys were in the red a couple of days in a row, like, pick up the phone. What's up, Eddie? He's like, oh, I'm good, man. He's like, dude, you're not good, man. You haven't slept. What's up? He's like, oh, man, me and Andrea got into it. I'm at a hotel. Dude, like, let's figure it out. So it was forcing us to have a real conversation. And then the other cool thing that it did was we could measure, going back to all these tools that we have access to now, like, what works for you? Do you know? Like, let's measure it. So from a biometric standpoint, if you go do a psychedelic, what's the impact it has on you? What's the impact it has on you over time? Is it a short duration? Like you mentioned, some of the stuff works for months.
Yeah.
So does your HRV, your heart rate, does your sleep all improve? Cool. How long does it improve before you go back to baseline? Or is that your new baseline? And measure everything. Like we were measuring, you go work out, cool. What kind of workout? You're doing breath work, mindfulness, meditation, ice baths. And we quickly saw what now is being tagged personalized medicine. We saw like everybody has a personalized approach to their healing. And that's where I took a step back and I was like, holy shit, like if we're doing this like ad hoc at a nonprofit, helping guys with their mental health, can we do this on a bigger scale? Mm-hmm. Like, can we create something that's automated, not manual? And that's where I ended up going back to grad school. We went to Oxford's MBA program, has an incubator program, and we worked on it for 2 years, developed an INVI Mind Health, which is basically an agnostic software company. So it doesn't matter if you got a Garmin, an Aura, we pull the biometrics from that, and we roll it up into what we call a mind score. So now it's just like, hey, where's your head at? Is the old tagline. We call it a mind score. So where's your mind score today? And you're going to have, we've already talked about it, you're going to have good days.
Yeah.
And brother, we're going to have bad days, right? So it's no judgment here. It's just like, hey, Eddie, you're trending down. The algorithm, the software shows you're trending down. Just be prepared, man. And oh, by the way, we can't do anything by ourselves. Let's create a community around this. And that's why we have the swim buddy concept and the team concept. So when
which I think is genius.
Dude, I think because you're not going to do it. You get in that dark spot, you're in that dark spot.
The last thing you want to do is talk to anybody, reach 100%. Out to anybody.
You're not going to.
I'm going to suffer by myself and
and I'll get through this.
Try and dig my way out of this. Yeah.
But I'm just going to sit here and pout and be pissed off and have dark thoughts. And then at some point I'll be out of it. Cool. No, dude, there's a better way to do this. We did it manually at the foundation. And INVI basically sends your swim buddy a text alert. It's like, hey, check in on Eddie today. Eddie's maybe he's a little off. His mind score's down, a certain amount of points. And you just check in and, hey, what's up, Eddie? Oh, I'm good, man. Are you really good? Yeah, I'm good. I just did a 4-hour run with Johnny. So obviously I'm not doing well. Or in other scenarios, and we've already seen it work. We're early stage company, but we've already seen it work where guys are catching dudes that are like going south. So,
and that's the point, right?
Yeah.
Is you are trying to mitigate guys offing themselves, which we talked about earlier is an epidemic.
Yeah.
It's trending, I guess. I got to a certain point a couple of years ago where it was like, dude, after like the fifth or sixth dude that did it, I'm like, why? I'm like, is this become like a trend? Like, oh, I'm not doing good. I'm just going to go ahead and do this like everybody else. Like, I just don't. And I get, like, I think I've gotten to a low point when I got out, but I was never crossed that threshold where I'm like, I'm going to kill myself. But I did understand. I told Andrea, it's like, I can understand why people do it. Like, this sucks. My head's bad. Like, I can't get out of this, and it sucks. And I do understand how somebody could go and be like, I'm just taking the easy way out.
Yeah.
Right? So, yeah, I think that's exactly what's needed is, and the other thing is, you can have other people, like, hey, you want to talk about it? And that's like, I don't fucking relate to you.
Yeah.
Like, and thank you for taking the time to care and ask me, but I will not talk to you.
Yeah.
Like, we're not, right or wrong or indifferent. That's just how a lot of us are. So it does help to have another buddy, like another team guy, call you and be like, hey, bro, and really just call you out and be like, no, you're not doing good, man. Let's fix this.
Yeah. And this is, we're starting with veterans. This isn't just for veterans, first responders, cops, LE, nurses. I mean, our children, like all the pressures they got on social media, like who's in your community, who's in your phone's Rolodex, like who do you have stored in there? That's who your swim buddy is. That's how you select it. It's not a random swim buddy. And we're honestly trying to catch people before they isolate, because when they isolate, that's when bad things happen, right? So if we can catch through the biometrics that, hey, Eddie's having an off day and somebody reaches out to you, you may not want to talk to them, but you're going to once they call you out. Like, I call you out. It's like, what's up? Like, tell me what's going on. It's going to put you in a better spot. So that's we've been working on it now full-time for 2 years at Oxford and then live about 1.5 years. We launched last March, and we did our MVP, which is minimal viable product. So it's in the App Store now. We have a bunch of people using it. And I would just say at the end of the day, we all will experience some type of mental health challenge in our lives, right?
Oh, for sure.
Depression, anxiety, we lose a family member, whatever that is. I truly believe this is for everybody. If we get this right, and we will, because we're stubborn as shit, like, oh, we're in the middle of a recession and you're starting a business, like, that's the great time to start a business, Johnny. He's like, yeah, well, it's just the way the cookie crumbled, man. Like, what am I going to do except keep moving forward? So that's what we're doing. And I would just say, if mental health is important to you, then I would recommend you download the app. It's in the App Store, INVI Mind Health. Get a swim buddy on there, get a teammate, a wife, a buddy, whatever it is, and just like start using it to support each other's mental health journey.
Yeah, try it out.
Yeah.
That's the only way you're going to see, like, for those listeners out there that are interested, like, it's on the App Store, right? Yep. It's just INVI Health.
Yeah, INVI Mind Health, INVI.
Yeah.
Yep.
Nice. And so that's going to bring us to what we're doing this November. And I'll go ahead and start this off real quick, where I got a call from Johnny probably, a couple months ago, asking me if I would partake in an event that was going to raise awareness for the INVI Health app, and then also educate and raise awareness for the suicide epidemic and mental health epidemic that's going on in this country. So, of course, yes, like, and it's you who asked me, so I'm like, of course, I'm gonna. You would always been there for me. I'm like, anything you want, and then find out what the event is.
Yeah, he said yes before he knew what it was.
So it ends up being it's going to be a 10-mile swim followed by a 200-mile run with Kit.
With Kit.
Yes, and we're doing it in 4 days and 4 nights.
Yeah.
Right? It's nonstop. And no, we're not partitioning it up. We're all doing it together as a group.
That's right.
Yes. So we've been training for it for the past 3 weeks now, I think. And it's, at first I was like, this son of a bitch, dude. I was running 10 miles, like, oh, there's no freaking way. I've never ran that long in my life, and I've never swam that long in my life. So in my head,
nor have I.
Yeah. I'm like, I'm going to go do this, and, we'll see what happens. I mean, I know we're not going to quit, but we'll see. We're going to finish it.
Oh, no doubt.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I'm glad. I'm now glad that we're doing this. Like, I've gotten to past the hump of like, oh, now I'm like, all right, it's focus time and we're going to crush it. But it's going to be, it's going to be fun. Miserable.
Yeah, it's going to be miserable. So, but that's, again, our happy place, right? And I appreciate you, brother, for saying yes before I even told you what it was. And so did everybody else that we asked. So there's a bunch of other guys running it with us. And again, why are we doing this, right? So, gosh, there's so many, just this last year, I think we've lost 4 guys to suicide. We lost a commanding officer to suicide last year. It's a huge problem. And I understand the medical model is what it is and it has to be what it is, but I think we're resilient and we're going to find better solutions. And that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to raise awareness. Yes, there's some great options out there, but there are potentially other ones. Let's go explore those novel treatments. Let's raise money, partner with universities like UCSF, like UT Austin, and let's do some research with our guys and gals that have CTE, because we got a hockey player, Daniel Carcillo. He's a 2-time Stanley Cup winner. I think he's been in over 200 fucking fights.
That's what he said.
I think he's got you beat by like 2, man. Yeah. But he's doing it with us, and he's doing it because he's lost buddies too to suicide, right? And he's struggled with his own issues with his brain health, like all the fighting that he's going through in hockey and the CTE those guys have. So we're looking to better understand TBI, raise money around that, CTE, and then suicide. And I can't think of a better crew to do it.
Yeah, we got a bunch of good mugs coming that are we're all doing this together, and we're all griping about it together, training. I love it. The shit talking on the thread, and I'm like, I know that's all going to be, the whole time when we're out there. And honestly, I'm like, I was talking about with Andrea, the other day. I'm like, the whole suicide epidemic thing is such like a dark cloud that it's been happening, and I know we all are affected by it. It's like one of those things where feel bad about it, but then I'm angry about it. I'm angry that guys are taking that route. And there's just a lot of like different emotions to where you really don't know how to like come out and talk about it too much, because one time you can be like, oh yeah, these poor people, but then the other half of me is like, why the fuck did you do this?
Yeah.
So I'm like, this is like the perfect way. I'm like, we're all going to suffer together, and we're going to hopefully be an example to guys like, hey man, like, yeah, we all suffer, but we need to do it together, and we're going to finish together, and we're all going to have each other's backs. And I think that hopefully this 4 days is going to show that.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's just for everybody listening, it's going to be in Sheridan, Wyoming. It's actually going to be, we're going to kick off in Montana and then head into Wyoming like no big deal. But we're planning on skydiving in. It's going to be weather dependent because it is Veterans Day. We're kicking off November 5th or potentially the 6th. We're still kind of locking that in. So skydive in and then swim the 10 miles. The water average temp, 45 degrees. 45 degrees. So I just want to give a shout out to Xterra for sponsoring us, because if we didn't have wetsuits, we'd be chilly woo.
Yeah. But that was my main concern until Xterra stepped up, and they're, yeah.
Yeah, hopefully they're giving each of us 2 wetsuits to layer on top of each other.
I'm telling you, dude.
That's cold.
Like, I might be paying some people off during that, but like, yo, pull me.
Yeah. You know we are. Yeah. Hey, here's $20 if you tow me in that kayak.
And it's going to be, and it also, like, once we complete it, it's like, dude, that's a check in the box. It's like, I just did that. Yeah. So, and my kids are watching me train for it. It sets a good example, man. Like, because I'll tell you, like, the second or third day of training, I was like, dude, like, are we doing this? Like, is this, and, I had a couple people like, dude, just don't do it. Like, team guys are like, dude, just, why are you doing it? And, my main, I'm like, because I said I would. I told Johnny I would, and I don't go back on my word.
Yep.
And I was negative like the first 3 days, like, dude. But now that I've switched my focus, and I'm, my kids, Andrea's behind it, and she's like, all right, like, this is what you're doing. And just like we talked about earlier with throwing chaos in our lives, I have like a lot of other stuff, going on. And then I think that's what's really cool too, is we're implementing this training and still doing our normal lives.
Yeah.
And I think that sets a good example, at least for my family, to be like, okay, this is what it looks like to prioritize and also to actually do something that's bigger than yourself.
Yeah.
Or for others,
That's well said, man. Yeah, because life goes on, right? Like, you still have responsibilities, you still have your job, you still got kids' practices, you still got school with the kids, and you still got life. And when are you going to do this? So, like, if this is important to you, like, we're getting up at 4 a.m. Like last Saturday, we did the 4 a.m. 4-hour run. You and I are about to do a 4-hour run, which I'm dreading. I'm dragging
welcome to Florida.
Yeah, I'm dragging this podcast on as long as I can to hopefully avoid it. Yeah, but, and it's brought, to your point, it's just brought a lot of good people behind us, like supporting us, our families, they're seeing it, companies, like Exos and Giovanni, our coach. Exos has been a great sponsor to us. They do a lot of training for pro athletes, NFL, et cetera. So they've kind of mandated and laid out our coaching program. Therabody, those, I don't know if I could do this without the Theragun. And
no.
Dude, have you put those calf things on?
I did. I've been using those.
Dude, those are amazing.
They're legit.
Yeah, we walk around the house. My wife's like, do you hear that? What is that? And it's like, I don't know what it's, they're a calf maybe, I don't know, but it's like a battery operated pulse on your calf. So you can wear these sleeves wherever you're at instead of being like, have to plug in. And it's just, it's a game changer.
I've used them a handful of times so far, and they've been awesome. And then also Concept 2.
Yeah.
Donating the ski ergs. That, because not a lot of us are near pools or have places to swim, so we're implementing that to take places swimming. So, definitely a lot of amazing companies that are supporting us and sponsoring us to help us get through this thing.
Yeah.
And we're looking for more.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. If this is aligned with what we're trying to do, if this is aligned with your company mandate and your mission, reach out to us. You can go to invimindhealth.com. So it'd be INVIMH.com. And then on the top right, you click on Monster Mash, and you'll get all the info there, sponsorship and donate too. So if you want to donate, the money's going to research with UCSF. We're going to do brain research with them. And if you want to get behind the event by donating whatever, anything helps, like we'd be grateful for that as well.
Yeah. And we're also like looking for funds or ways to at least have the guys fly out to where we're at. I mean, like we said, each one of us that's doing this, we all have our own lives. We're all supporting our families, and we're trying to make this to where guys don't have to come out of pocket to go complete this thing, which I think we're a good 75-80% of the way there. Thankfully these awesome companies that are helping us out. But yeah, we're also looking for that too. So,
and the boys up in Sheridan too. So Brad Walden, the Wyoming West Foundation, Warrior Foundation, those guys are great. Brad's a good man, and he's been kind of leading the way with that. And then just all the folks up there that have opened up their doors to us. So really excited to do this, man. I think we're like 64 days out. I know.
Hey, it's a goal. I'm like, we're going to be there soon.
Yeah.
And I think, you know what? And crossing that finish line is going to be...
It's going to be epic.
It's going to be badass, especially on Veterans Day.
Yep. And then we're gonna wrap it up with a big a gala dinner. So families are gonna be there to celebrate. It's Veterans Day, so we're gonna celebrate, and not just the accomplishment of the week and the race, but what Veterans Day means to us. And we'll auction off some cool things. We got helicopter rides, shooting events, rifles. It's just gonna be a good time for all our families and for this country, in my opinion.
Oh yeah. Hopefully they'll have some wheelchairs there for us.
We're going to zoom in.
Yeah.
Hey, why are the guys zooming in? Because they're in bed.
Yeah. Like, I'm done.
I fucking hate you, Johnny.
Oh, I say that at least once a week. As I'm running. I'm like, this motherfucker.
Yeah. Well, that says a lot about the community, though, dude, man. Like, the fact that you just said yes, right? Like, it's not about you. It's not about me. It's never been about us. It's about everybody else that can't stand up for themselves, everybody else that's in a bad position and just can't pull themselves out of it. Like, if we're in a position we can help, then why aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, why aren't you? Yeah.
I mean, that's part of being in the brotherhood, too. Yep. I mean, it still exists, and you're an example of that. So, I appreciate you coming down here, and coming on this podcast. I know you got a busy schedule. I got 5 kids, but taking the time to fly down here, spend some time with me and the family, and we're going to get to go do this run. But like I said in the beginning of the podcast, dude, you have always been a phenomenal human being, even when we were in buds together. And then just everything that you've done for the teams, for the guys in the teams, helping them when they can't get help somewhere else. I mean, it's truly a testament to who you are as a human being, man, and I'm honored to be your buddy. Well,
I appreciate that, and this will resonate with you. It's our spouses.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean? So thank you for the kind words, but the reality is it's Allison and the foundation and the strength that she is in our household, and to deal with this chaotic, unpredictable human that I am, and support me, and I feel very blessed. So, and I know the same is true with you and Andrea. So
for sure, dude. Yeah. Our wives keep us alive. That's for sure. Yeah, we are blessed.
Yep.
All right, buddy. So let's go hydrate and go get this over with.
Cool. Thanks, brother.
Out.
All right. Good job. It was fun.
Yeah.
I did not want to do this run.
We got